Admiral Minho Quan stood in Earth's war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Voidborn's advance. Every day brought new reports of destroyed colonies and silent worlds. The galaxy was dying, and humanity had promised to stop it with ships held together by spare parts and weapons considered antiques by galactic standards. "We have 2 weeks to prove ourselves," Minho said to his assembled commanders. 2 weeks before the Council writes us off and focuses on evacuation. So let's talk about how a species that's been the galaxy's punchline for 30 years is going to win a war. Captain Taman activated a display showing the battle recordings from the First Fleet's destruction. The Voidborn have 3 main advantages. First, their shields absorb and reflect energy weapons. Second, their dark matter weapons pass through conventional defenses. Third, they can hack and control advanced AI systems. All of which makes our outdated technology useless, a general muttered. "No," Taman replied. "It makes our outdated technology perfect. Watch this." He highlighted a moment in the battle when a Voidborn weapon phased through a shield. Their weapons are designed to counter energy barriers. But what if we don't use energy barriers? Dr. Unjihan stepped forward. She was a physicist who had spent her career studying weapons technology that other species had abandoned centuries ago. Kinetic weapons. Ballistic missiles. Simple, brutal mechanical devices that relied on nothing more complex than mass and velocity. Railguns, Yunji said simply. Tungsten projectiles accelerated to a fraction of light speed. No energy signature to absorb. No quantum state to manipulate. Just solid matter moving very, very fast. Their shields are tuned to energy weapons. A tungsten rod weighing 10 kilograms traveling at 0.2 light speed carries more destructive force than most of their energy cannons. And there's nothing quantum about it. A Vrelian military advisor, one of the few who had survived the First Fleet, shook his head. Kinetic weapons are too slow, too easy to dodge. This is why civilized warfare moved beyond them. Civilized warfare, Minho repeated, his voice hard. The Voidborn just killed 5 million of your people in 4 hours. I don't think we're concerned with being civilized anymore. Lieutenant Deho, show them the simulations. Deho pulled up tactical models. The Voidborn move in coordinated formations because their hive mind allows perfect communication. They dodge energy weapons by predicting firing solutions based on AI patterns. But AI is predictable. Human pilots aren't. If we use manual controls, fire kinetic weapons at random intervals, and coordinate through simple voice communication instead of data networks, we become impossible for them to predict. "You're suggesting we fight like primitives," the Vrelian advisor said. "Yes," Minho replied, "because primitives are what win this war." The Council reluctantly provided coordinates for 3 Voidborn positions, small outposts that the aliens were using as supply bases. If humanity failed against these minor targets, the Council would know there was no hope. If humanity succeeded, maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. Captain Taman commanded a strike force of 12 human vessels. They were mining ships, transport haulers, and patrol boats, each one retrofitted with weapons that the galaxy considered obsolete. Railguns mounted where cargo containers used to be, missile tubes loaded with simple explosive warheads, no AI targeting systems, no quantum computers. Just human crews, manual controls, and determination. They approached the first Voidborn outpost in silence, their outdated fusion reactors producing energy signatures that the alien scanners apparently couldn't recognize as military vessels. To the Voidborn, they probably looked like space debris or natural phenomena. "All ships break radio silence only when necessary," Taman ordered. "Remember, no electronic targeting. Use visual confirmation and manual calculations. Engineering, how are those railguns?" Engineer Hyunwoo responded from the weapons bay. "Charged and ready, Captain. We've got 20 rounds per gun. Make them count." The Voidborn outpost was a massive structure of dark matter and conventional materials, pulsing with the same geometry that hurt human eyes to observe. 6 Voidborn ships orbited it, their scanners sweeping space for threats they expected. Energy signatures, quantum fluctuations, AI communication patterns. They didn't see the human fleet until it was too late. "All ships fire at will," Taman commanded. The railguns spoke with thunder. Tungsten rods erupted from human vessels at incredible velocities, crossing the distance to the Voidborn ships in seconds. The aliens' adaptive shields, designed to absorb energy weapons, did nothing against solid projectiles traveling at relativistic speeds. The first Voidborn ship exploded as a railgun round punched through its hull and detonated its power core. The second tried to dodge, its AI predicting the trajectory of the next shot based on the first, but human gunners didn't use mathematical precision. They aimed by instinct and experience, firing when it felt right. The Voidborn's AI couldn't predict human intuition. 3 Voidborn ships were destroyed in the opening salvo. The remaining 3 returned fire with their dark matter weapons, beams of darkness that phased through space toward the human fleet. But Taemin's pilots weren't following computer-generated evasion patterns. They flew like humans had always flown, unpredictably, erratically, using gut feeling over calculated precision. The Voidborn weapons missed more often than they hit. And when they did hit, human ships used simple mechanical armor instead of energy shields. Dark matter could phase through energy barriers, but it had to interact with solid matter eventually. Human hulls were thick, redundant, and low-tech. Damage that would have disabled an advanced vessel just made human ships angrier. Daeho, target the outpost's main structure, Taemin ordered, wrestling with his ship's manual controls as a dark matter beam carved a chunk out of his port side. Warning lights flashed, but the horizon's edge kept flying. Hit it with everything we have. The human fleet concentrated fire on the outpost. Railgun rounds and chemical missiles, actual explosive devices, not quantum weapons, slammed into the structure. The Voidborn had built it to withstand advanced attacks, but nobody had prepared them for the simple physics of high-velocity impact. The outpost cracked. Atmosphere vented. Internal structures collapsed. And then the power core destabilized, creating an explosion that consumed the 3 remaining Voidborn ships. Taemin surveyed the debris field, breathing hard. They'd lost 2 ships in the engagement, but they'd won. Against an enemy that had destroyed the Galactic Council's first fleet, humanity had won. All ships regroup and proceed to the second target, he ordered. We've got 2 more outposts to destroy. While the space battle raged, Commander Jiho Park led a different kind of mission. His special operations team consisted of 30 soldiers wearing sealed combat suits with no electronic emissions. No powered armor, no smart weapons, just mechanical rifles, simple radios, and old-fashioned explosives. They'd infiltrated a damaged Voidborn vessel that the strike force had disabled. The ship's hull was torn open, its dark matter systems flickering and failing. Jiho's team moved through corridors that seemed to fold in on themselves, fighting waves of nausea as they navigated geometry that human minds weren't meant to process. Contact, a soldier called out as Voidborn warriors materialized from the shadows. They were biomechanical nightmares, half living tissue and half dark matter constructs. Advanced, terrifying, and completely unprepared for humans who fought with bullets and grenades. Jiho's team opened fire. Simple kinetic weapons that the Voidborn couldn't absorb or reflect. Explosives that detonated based on chemical reactions, not quantum triggers. The Voidborn tried to phase through the attacks, but solid matter traveling at supersonic speeds didn't care about quantum states. The team fought their way to the ship's core, where the hive-mind connection was strongest. Dr. Yuna had given them a device, a quantum disruptor based on her analysis of Voidborn technology. It was crude, built from salvaged parts and human ingenuity, but it should work. Should. Maybe. Hopefully. Jiho planted the device and activated it. The machine hummed, then screamed, emitting electromagnetic pulses that were chaotic and random. The Voidborn hive mind required precise quantum entanglement to function. Random electromagnetic interference disrupted those connections like static on a radio. The Voidborn warriors in the ship suddenly froze, their coordinated movements becoming confused and disjointed. They attacked each other, unable to distinguish friend from enemy without the hive mind's guidance. It's working, Jiho reported. The disruptor is severing their connection. Then let's get out before this ship tears itself apart, Taemin replied over the radio. Jiho's team retreated as the Voidborn vessel began to collapse, its systems failing without the hive mind's coordination. They evacuated just as the ship exploded, creating another victory for humanity's improvised warfare. By the end of the 2-week trial period, Taemin's strike force had destroyed all 3 target outposts with minimal losses. More importantly, they'd proven that the Voidborn could be beaten. The recordings of the battle spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been preparing for evacuation suddenly saw hope. Admiral Minho presented his findings to the Galactic Council. The Voidborn prepared to fight advanced civilizations. The warning came 3 days before the Voidborn fleet arrived. Earth's deep space sensors detected them first, a massive armada that made the force that destroyed the Council's first fleet look like a scouting party. 2,000 dark ships moving in perfect formation toward humanity's homeworld, intent on eliminating the species that dared to resist. Admiral Minho stood on the command deck of Earth's orbital defense station, watching the approaching fleet on long-range displays. Around him, defense coordinators worked frantically to implement plans that had been drawn up in 72 desperate hours. Plans that shouldn't work. Plans that defied every principle of modern warfare. Plans that were humanity's only chance. Status report, Minho ordered. All orbital platforms are armed and ready, an officer responded. We've converted every mining station, every satellite, every piece of space junk we could reach into weapons platforms. 3,000 independent firing positions, each loaded with kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Ground defenses. General Sora reports all planetary batteries are operational. Major cities are evacuated to underground shelters. Fighter squadrons are dispersed across 12 hidden airfields. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Minho nodded grimly. Earth was about to become a fortress, defended not by advanced technology but by human stubbornness and the simple physics of mass and velocity. The galaxy was watching, waiting to see if humanity's primitive approach could survive when the Voidborn brought their full might to bear. Captain Taman commanded the space defense forces from the horizon's edge, positioned at the edge of Earth's orbital perimeter. His ship was surrounded by hundreds of others, retrofitted mining vessels, converted transports, even civilian ships that had volunteered to join the defense. None of them were proper military vessels, but each one carried railguns and missiles that could hurt the Voidborn. All ships, remember your training, Taman broadcast across the fleet. No computer targeting. No AI coordination. Use your eyes and your instincts. The Voidborn expect us to fight like an advanced civilization. We're going to fight like angry humans defending their home. On the planet's surface, General Sora Han walked through the command center beneath Sol's armored dome. The city above was empty, its millions of residents sheltered deep underground in facilities built during Earth's early paranoid years after first contact. Back then, humanity had feared invasion from the advanced species. Nobody had imagined that fear would become reality, just from a different source. General atmospheric sensors are tracking the Voidborn fleet, an aide reported. They'll reach orbital space in 6 hours. Sora checked her own forces. Thousands of ground troops positioned in hidden locations, artillery batteries using chemical propellants instead of energy weapons, tank divisions that ran on fossil fuels, not fusion cores, fighter aircraft with mechanical controls and human pilots. Earth was fighting with technology from its own past, weaponry that more advanced species had abandoned centuries ago. It was going to have to be enough. The Voidborn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 2,000 ships of dark matter and alien geometry, each one powerful enough to crack a moon. They moved in perfect synchronization, the hive mind controlling every vessel as extensions of a single consciousness. They expected an easy victory. Intelligence from their previous encounters suggested humanity had perhaps 50 combat-capable vessels and primitive defense systems. The Voidborn allocated sufficient force to destroy Earth's military, sterilize the planet's surface, and move on to the next target within a standard day. They did not expect to find 3,000 weapons platforms waiting for them. The orbital platforms opened fire simultaneously. Railgun rounds and missiles erupted from every direction, filling space with kinetic death. The Voidborn shields activated, prepared to absorb energy weapons, and failed to stop solid tungsten traveling at relativistic speeds. The first wave of projectiles tore through the Voidborn formation. 50 ships exploded in the initial salvo, caught completely off guard. The hive mind adjusted rapidly, ordering evasive maneuvers and return fire. Dark matter weapons lanced out, striking the orbital platforms. Entire stations vaporized under the assault, but for every platform destroyed, 2 more kept firing. The humans had learned from their earlier victories: spread out, make every position independent, and never stop shooting. All fighters, launch. Captain Borashin commanded from her cockpit as Earth's atmospheric defense squadrons lifted off from hidden airfields. Her fighter was a sleek machine by human standards, hopelessly primitive by galactic ones. It had manual controls, chemical fuel engines, and weapons that fired simple explosive missiles. Bora's squadron of 200 fighters rose to meet voidborne attack craft that were descending toward the planet. The alien ships were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that could phase through conventional defenses. On paper, it should have been a massacre. The voidborne pilots relied on AI prediction algorithms to anticipate enemy movements. They tracked energy signatures, calculated optimal firing solutions, and executed perfect mathematical combat maneuvers. But Bora and her pilots didn't fly by mathematics. They flew by instinct, by feeling, by the unpredictable chaos of human emotion. A voidborne fighter locked onto Bora's ship, its AI calculating her next move based on her current trajectory. It fired a dark matter beam at where she should be in the next 3 seconds. But Bora wasn't there. She'd pulled a maneuver that made no tactical sense, burning fuel inefficiently and putting stress on her airframe just because something in her gut said, "Turn left now." The dark matter beam missed. Bora's counterstrike, a simple heat-seeking missile, slammed into the voidborne fighter and detonated. 1 kill for humanity. The battle spread across Earth's orbital space and upper atmosphere. Voidborne ships tried to break through to the planet's surface, but they encountered layer after layer of human resistance. Railgun platforms that fired and repositioned before the aliens could retaliate. Fighter squadrons that attacked from unexpected angles and retreated into cloud cover. Defense satellites that were nothing more than explosive charges with basic guidance systems, ramming voidborne vessels in suicide runs. It was chaos. It was inefficient. It was completely unpredictable. And it was working. Engineer Hyunwoo, working from Earth's main defense station, monitored the battle's progress. He'd been analyzing voidborne communication patterns and noticed something crucial. "Admiral, the hive mind is having trouble coordinating. Our electromagnetic interference is stronger in Earth's magnetosphere. The random radio chatter from our forces, the unpredictable energy signatures from our primitive engines, it's creating static in their quantum network. Can we amplify that effect?" Mino asked. "I've been working on something. Give me 10 minutes. Hyunwoo and his team quickly assembled a device based on principles that were ancient by galactic standards. A massive electromagnetic pulse generator, powered by Earth's entire power grid. When activated, it would release a burst of random electromagnetic energy across all frequencies. "This will knock out our own communications," Hyunwoo warned. "Everything electronic within 1,000 kilometers will be affected." "Do it," Minho ordered. "We can fight without electronics." They can't. The pulse erupted from Earth's surface, a wave of electromagnetic chaos that washed over the orbital battlefield. Human systems designed with simple mechanical backups and shielded against such interference survived with minimal disruption. The voidborne hive mind, relying on precise quantum entanglement across thousands of ships, shattered like glass. Suddenly, 2,000 coordinated vessels became 2,000 independent entities, each one confused and disoriented. They continued fighting, but without the hive mind's perfect synchronization, they were vulnerable. They made mistakes. They hesitated. They became targets. Captain Taman pressed the attack. All ships concentrated fire on the flagship. The largest voidborne vessel, a massive construct that served as the local hive mind nexus, was struggling to re-establish control. Human forces converged on it, pouring railgun rounds and missiles into its hull. The flagship's shields flickered and failed. Tungsten rods punched through its armor. Chemical explosives detonated in its corridors. And then Dr. Yuna's quantum disruptor, mounted on a specially modified missile, penetrated to its core and activated. The flagship died, and with it, the hive mind's local node. The remaining voidborne ships became even more confused, their coordination completely severed. Some fled. Some continued fighting with diminished effectiveness. Many simply stopped, their systems overwhelmed by the loss of central control. But the battle wasn't over. Voidborne ground forces had managed to land in several locations, deploying biomechanical warriors that were designed to exterminate planetary populations. They encountered General Sora's ground forces. The Voidborne warriors were individually superior to human soldiers. They were stronger, faster, and equipped with weapons that could phase through cover. But they'd been designed to fight organized resistance from advanced civilizations. They hadn't prepared for humans who fought dirty. Sora's troops used ambush tactics perfected over millennia of human warfare. They lured Voidborne warriors into kill zones and hit them with artillery barrages. The combined fleet assembled at the rally point 3 weeks after Earth's defense. It was the largest military force in galactic history. 10,000 ships from every member species of the Galactic Council, all retrofitted with human weapons and tactics. But this time, the fleet had something it lacked before: a unified command structure based on human military doctrine. Admiral Minho Quan stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Earth flagship, the Indomitable, addressing the fleet commanders through holographic communication. Beside him stood representatives from every major species: Vrelians, Kelthari, and dozens of others who had learned to set aside their technological pride. The Voidborn Central Nexus is located at the galaxy's core, protected by what our intelligence suggests is at least 15,000 enemy vessels, Minho began. They're expecting us. They've been analyzing our tactics since Earth. They know about our railguns, our electromagnetic interference, our manual control systems. This will not be easy. Then how do we win? Asked a Vrelian fleet commander, one of the few senior officers who had survived the First Fleet's destruction. We adapt faster than they can, Minho replied. They're a hive mind. They think in patterns, in coordinated responses. Every ship connected, every decision processed through the central nexus. But we're thousands of independent minds, each one capable of creative thinking. We'll use a three-pronged attack strategy that will force them to divide their attention across multiple threats simultaneously. Captain Taman activated a tactical display. The first prong is a direct frontal assault. We'll use heavy ships equipped with railgun platforms to draw their main force. They'll expect us to break under their concentrated fire. Instead, we'll be the anvil they smash themselves against. Captain Soman continued the briefing. The second prong is a flanking maneuver. Fast attack ships using silent running protocols will circle around the battlefield. The Voidborn still have difficulty detecting our primitive energy signatures when we run on minimal power. We'll hit their support vessels and supply lines. And the third prong? The Kelthari representative asked. Commander Jiho Park stepped forward. A special forces insertion team will penetrate the central nexus itself. We'll deliver a payload directly to the hive mind's core consciousness. One massive quantum disruptor, powerful enough to sever every connection in the Voidborn network simultaneously. The plan was audacious to the point of insanity. It required perfect timing, flawless execution, and a level of coordination between independent forces that should be impossible. But it also incorporated the single most important lesson humanity had taught the galaxy. Rigid plans fail, but determined improvisers succeed. One more thing, Minho added. We all know the statistics, the casualty projections. This will be the bloodiest battle in galactic history. Many of us won't return home, but if we succeed, we save trillions of lives. We preserve civilization itself. That's worth fighting for. That's worth dying for. The fleet commanders nodded, each one understanding the weight of what they were about to attempt. They'd learned from humanity that sometimes survival required sacrifice. Sometimes victory required accepting losses. Sometimes the only way forward was through the fire. All ships prepare for jump, Minho commanded. We leave in 1 hour, and we end this war. The jump to the galactic core was the longest of Captain Taman's life. The Horizon's Edge led a battle group of 200 ships, each one carrying railguns and kinetic weapons that would form the frontal assault force. They emerged from faster-than-light travel into a nightmare. The Voidborn had been busy. The space around their central nexus was filled with defensive structures, massive platforms that bristled with dark matter weapons, sensor arrays that covered every approach vector, and 15,000 ships arranged in defensive formations that could concentrate fire on any threat. All ships, begin the attack run, Taman ordered, his voice steady despite the fear in his gut. Remember, we're the distraction. Make it convincing. The human-led battle group accelerated toward the Voidborn lines, opening fire at maximum range. Railgun rounds and missiles streaked through space, slamming into Voidborn shields and armor. The enemy returned fire with devastating efficiency. Ships on both sides began dying, explosions lighting up the darkness like deadly fireworks. But the assault served its purpose. The Voidborn concentrated their forces on stopping the frontal attack, pulling ships from their defensive perimeter to reinforce the threatened sector. They were thinking tactically, responding to the immediate threat with overwhelming force. They didn't notice the 3,000 silent ships approaching from an entirely different angle. Captain Soman commanded, the flanking force from the Defiant Dawn, her ship running on minimal power to avoid detection. They'd spent the past hour circling around the battlefield, using the gravity well of a nearby black hole to mask their approach. Now they struck. The flanking force emerged from the darkness like ghosts, targeting the Voidborn supply vessels and command ships positioned behind the main defensive lines. Railguns fired at point-blank range, tearing through hulls before the enemy could respond. Entire support squadrons evaporated under the surprise assault. The Voidborn hive mind reacted quickly, redirecting forces to counter the flanking attack. But now they were fighting on two fronts, their perfect coordination stressed by the need to respond to threats from multiple directions simultaneously. Electromagnetic pulse now. Hyunwoo triggered the interference devices mounted throughout the attacking fleet. Waves of random electromagnetic energy washed over the battlefield, disrupting the quantum entanglement that allowed the hive mind to coordinate its forces. The Voidborn fleet didn't collapse like it had at Earth. The central nexus was too powerful, its signal too strong to completely block. But the interference created lag, moments of confusion where the hive mind's commands took seconds longer to reach individual ships. In space combat, seconds meant the difference between life and death. While the main battle raged, Commander Jiho's insertion team approached the central nexus in a ship that was barely functional by galactic standards. It was an old Earth transport, patched together with salvaged parts and equipped with nothing more sophisticated than chemical thrusters. To the Voidborn sensors it looked like debris, just another piece of wreckage drifting through the battlefield. "We're approaching the outer perimeter," Jiho reported to his team of 50 Special Forces soldiers. Each one knew they were on a one-way mission. "Remember, once we're inside, there's no communication with the outside. No support, no rescue. We complete the mission or we die trying." "Understood, sir," they replied in unison. The transport drifted past Voidborn defensive platforms, its passive trajectory making it appear harmless. When they were close enough to the nexus, Jiho activated the ship's thrusters for one final burn, ramming them directly into the massive structure's hull. The impact tore the transport apart, but that was the plan. Jiho and his team, wearing sealed combat suits, floated through the breach into the nexus itself. Inside, the structure was a nightmare of organic technology and dark matter architecture. Corridors that bent in impossible directions, chambers that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and Voidborn warriors, thousands of them, responding to the intrusion. "Move fast," Jiho commanded. Dr. Yuna had provided them with a map based on her analysis of captured Voidborn technology. The hive mind's core was 3 kilometers deep into the structure, protected by layers of defenses both physical and technological. The team fought through waves of Voidborn defenders. Simple ballistic weapons against biomechanical nightmares, grenades and explosives against enemies that could phase through solid matter. It should have been impossible, but the soldiers pushed forward through sheer determination and the tactical flexibility that came from human unpredictability. They lost people. Every corridor cost lives, every chamber was bought with blood. But the survivors kept moving, knowing that every second they delayed was another second for the fleet outside to keep fighting. Outside the Nexus, the battle had reached a critical point. Captain Tayman's frontal assault force was down to half strength, ships burning and dying under concentrated Voidborn fire. Captain Soman's flanking attack was facing heavy resistance as the enemy adapted to the threat. The combined fleet was hemorrhaging casualties, and the Voidborn showed no signs of breaking. "Admiral, we can't sustain these losses much longer," a fleet coordinator reported to Minho. "If the insertion team doesn't succeed in the next 10 minutes, we'll have to consider retreat." "We don't retreat," Minho replied firmly. "We hold the line. We give Jiho every second he needs." Inside the Nexus, Jiho's team had been reduced to 15 soldiers. They'd fought through impossible odds, leaving a trail of Voidborn corpses and improvised explosives behind them. Now they stood before a massive chamber, the hive mind's central core, a pulsing mass of dark matter and quantum processors that controlled billions of Voidborn entities across the galaxy. "Set the charges," Jiho ordered. Dr. Yunji had designed the quantum disruptor they carried specifically for this moment. It was a fusion device combined with quantum interference technology, powerful enough to create a disruption that would cascade through the entire Voidborn network. The Kelthari colony of Bright Harbor had been a thriving settlement of 30,000 just 2 days ago. Now, as Captain Soman Choi guided her ship, the Defiant Dawn, into orbit, she saw only silence and darkness, no communication signals, no power readings, no life signs. "This can't be right," her sensor officer muttered. "The entire colony's infrastructure is just gone." Soman had commanded Earth's second deep space vessel for 3 years, always feeling like she was playing pretend at being a real military officer. But as she looked at the dead world below, something cold settled in her stomach. This was real. This was serious. And the galaxy had sent a human ship to investigate because nobody else wanted to waste resources on what they assumed was a minor incident. "Take us down," Soman ordered. "Full sensor sweep. I want to know what happened here." The Defiant Dawn descended through Bright Harbor's atmosphere, passing over cities that should have been gleaming with crystalline architecture and bioluminescent gardens. Instead, they found ruins, not bombed or burned, but surgically dismantled, as if something had taken the colony apart piece by piece with terrifying precision. They landed near what had been the colony's central plaza. Salman led a team outside, their environment suits creaking with each step. The air was breathable but carried a strange metallic taste that the filters couldn't quite remove. Buildings stood like hollow shells, their interiors completely stripped. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle, just emptiness. "Captain, you need to see this," one of her crew called from inside a partially collapsed structure. Salman hurried over and found herself staring at a wall that shouldn't exist. The metal was dark, almost black, and covered in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Her eyes couldn't quite focus on the geometric shapes. "What is it?" "I don't know, but it's not Kelthari technology. It's not from any civilization in the database." The crewmen ran a scanner over the surface. "The molecular structure is wrong. It's like matter that's been compressed and reshaped at the quantum level. Our scanners can barely read it." Salman collected samples and ordered her team back to the ship. As the Defiant Dawn lifted off, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched by something vast and utterly alien. She sent her findings to Earth Command and the Galactic Council, along with recordings and physical evidence. This time surely someone would pay attention. The response from the Council came quickly. "Evidence reviewed. Unknown raiders using advanced stealth technology. Fleet assets being deployed to affected sectors. Earth vessels should continue standard patrols." But Somin noticed what they didn't say. They didn't ask questions. They didn't request additional investigation. They were trying to keep the situation quiet, maintaining the illusion that everything was under control. On the horizon's edge, Dr. Yuna analyzed the samples Soman had sent. Her hands trembled as she completed the final tests. The material wasn't just advanced. It represented physics that shouldn't be possible with current understanding. The substance existed in a state between normal matter and dark matter, cycling between the two states thousands of times per second. "Weaponized dark matter," she whispered. "They've found a way to weaponize dark matter." She immediately contacted Captain Taman. "Sir, this changes everything. The Galactic Science Council declared this technology theoretically impossible. It would require energy manipulation on scales that... How dangerous is it?" Taman cut to the practical question. Yuna pulled up her calculations. "If they can create matter in this state, they can bypass any known shielding. They can phase through solid objects. They can make conventional weapons useless. Captain, whoever did this has technology that makes the entire Galactic Council's combined military obsolete." The same day Yuna made her discovery, the attackers sent their message. It appeared simultaneously on every communication device in the galaxy, from the most advanced Vrelian quantum networks to the clunky human radio broadcasts. The message was simple, translated into every known language. "We are the Voidborn Collective. Your presence in this galaxy is a contamination. You have 30 standard days to evacuate all inhabited systems and retreat beyond the galactic rim. Any species remaining after this deadline will be sterilized." This is not a negotiation. The galaxy erupted into panic and then defiant outrage. Who were these Voidborn to make such demands? They were clearly from outside the galaxy, which meant they were the invaders, not the established civilizations. The Galactic Council's military leaders held emergency sessions, their confidence unshaken by the threat. Ambassador Jiwan watched the proceedings from Earth's small observation gallery. Fleet Admiral Kelvos, a Vrelian with centuries of military experience, addressed the assembled military commanders with calm assurance. Our combined fleet numbers over 50,000 capital ships, supported by millions of fighters and drones. Our technology has been refined over millennia. These Voidborn may have destroyed a few outer colonies, but they cannot stand against the full might of galactic civilization. We will show them the price of threatening our territory. Applause and cheers filled the chamber. G1 noticed she was the only one not celebrating. She raised her hand requesting permission to speak. The chairman recognized her with obvious reluctance. Honored Admiral, has the Council analyzed the Voidborn's technology? The evidence from Bright Harbor suggests capabilities we've never encountered. Admiral Kelvis's expression suggested he was addressing a child. Ambassador Lee, Earth's limited experience with galactic warfare is understandable. However, superior numbers and established military doctrine always triumph over exotic weapons. We've faced pirates with unusual technology before. This will be no different, but sir, what if the Council has made its decision? Our fleets deploy in 2 days. This threat will be eliminated swiftly and decisively. Jiwon sat down, feeling helpless. She sent a message to Captain Taemin. They're not listening. They think this is just another minor threat. The Galactic Council's first fleet was magnificent. 5,000 ships, including the pride of the Vrelian Navy, the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, a vessel 10 kilometers long and armed with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Admiral Kelvos commanded from its bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship under his command. The fleet jumped to the coordinates where the Voidborn had last been detected, expecting to find a ragtag group of extragalactic raiders. Instead, they found a fleet that made their own look small. Thousands of dark ships hung in space, their surfaces absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They moved with eerie coordination as if controlled by a single mind. All ships, battle formations, Admiral Kelvos ordered. Prepare to fire on my command. The Voidborn didn't wait. They attacked with weapons that seemed to bend reality itself, beams of darkened energy that passed through shields as if they didn't exist, projectiles that phased in and out of normal space, appearing inside ship hulls and detonating. And worse, something that reached into the fleet's computer systems. Sir, we're losing control of the tactical network, an officer reported, panic creeping into his voice. The AI systems are being overridden. Admiral Kelvos watched in horror as his own ships turned their weapons on each other. The Voidborn had hacked the advanced AI systems that coordinated fleet movements and targeting. Systems so sophisticated that organic pilots couldn't match their precision. Those same systems now made the fleet vulnerable, each ship connected to a network that the Voidborn could control. Ships that had been allies for centuries opened fire on one another. Energy weapons designed to overwhelm enemy shields instead tore through friendly hulls. The carefully coordinated formation dissolved into chaos. Shut down the tactical network, Kelvos ordered. Switch to manual control. But it was too late. The Voidborn fleet advanced, their dark matter weapons tearing through the Galactic Council's finest ships like paper. When Council vessels fired back, the Voidborn shields absorbed the energy and reflected it back at the attackers. Every weapon humanity's allies relied on. Advanced energy projectors, plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, proved useless or worse than useless. The Eternal Dominion lasted longer than most, its thick armor and redundant systems giving it precious extra minutes. Admiral Kelvos used those minutes to send one final message to the Council. We were wrong. Their technology counters everything we have. We need a different approach. The transmission ended as the dreadnought broke apart, torn into pieces by weapons that made conventional warfare look like children playing with sticks. Of the 5,000 ships in the First Fleet, fewer than 200 escaped. They jumped away in panic, carrying news of the disaster back to the Council. The galaxy's military pride had been shattered in less than 4 hours. On the horizon's edge, Captain Taemin received reports of the battle's outcome. His crew gathered on the bridge, reading the casualty figures in stunned silence. Millions dead, the Council's military leadership in disarray, the Voidborn advancing toward core worlds, destroying everything in their path. They have 26 days left, Lieutenant Deho said quietly. 26 days to evacuate trillions of beings from hundreds of worlds. It's impossible. Engineer Hyunwoo Nam, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Captain, I've been analyzing the battle recordings that survived. The Council chamber stretched before Ambassador Ji-Won Lee like a monument to her failure. Thousands of seats rose in circular tiers, each occupied by representatives from species that had mastered space travel before humans had invented the wheel. The air hummed with translation devices converting hundreds of alien languages into comprehensible speech. Jiwon stood at the central podium, her formal Earth delegation uniform feeling suddenly too tight, too primitive compared to the shimmering energy garments and biomechanical interfaces worn by the other ambassadors. And so, honored council members, Earth requests improved access to the Kashari trade corridor. Jiwon concluded her presentation, her voice steady despite the weight of 1,000 dismissive stares. Our colonies would benefit greatly from laughter erupted, not polite disagreement or diplomatic deflection, but genuine mocking laughter that echoed through the massive chamber. A Kelthari ambassador, its crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns, spoke through its translator with barely concealed amusement. The humans want trade routes? Perhaps they should first master the art of building ships that don't break down every 100 light years. More laughter rippled through the assembly. Jiwon's jaw tightened, but she maintained her composure. 30 years since first contact, and Earth was still the joke of the galaxy. The Vrelian Empire had discovered humanity's first clumsy, faster-than-light probe and brought Earth into galactic society, not as equals, but as curiosities. Amusing primitives who had somehow stumbled into technology they barely understood. The council chairman, a massive Vrelian with skin like polished obsidian, waved one of his 4 arms dismissively. The petition is denied. Earth's current trade access is more than adequate for your level of development. This council has more important matters to address. Jiwon returned to her seat, burning with humiliation. Around her, other ambassadors returned to their conversations, already forgetting Earth's existence. She pulled out her communicator and sent a brief message to Captain Taemin Kang, commander of the Horizon's Edge, humanity's sole deep space patrol vessel. The message was simple: another failure. They won't even listen. 3,000 light-years away, Captain Taemin read the message on the bridge of his ship and sighed. The Horizon's Edge had been a mining vessel in its previous life, retrofitted with weapons that were laughable by galactic standards and engines that required constant maintenance. His crew of 47 did their best, but they all knew the truth. They were playing at being a military vessel. "Sir, we've received new orders from Earth Command," Lieutenant Daeho Kim reported from the weapons station. The young officer's voice carried a familiar edge of frustration. "We're being rerouted away from the Belkan sector. Apparently the Vrelian fleet is conducting exercises there and requested all human vessels stay clear. They think we'll get in the way," Taemin said quietly. "It wasn't a question." "Yes, sir. They specifically cited our limited maneuvering capabilities as a safety concern." Daeho's hands clenched into fists. "We've been running combat simulations, Captain. Our weapons couldn't scratch the paint on a Vrelian frigate. Our missiles would be intercepted before they got within 1,000 kilometers. Our energy shields would last maybe 30 seconds under their fire." Taemin nodded slowly. He'd known this for years, but hearing it stated so bluntly still stung. "Set course for the alternate patrol route, Lieutenant. No point arguing with orders." In the science lab, Dr. Yuna Park barely noticed the course change. Her attention was fixed on the sensor data streaming across her screens. 3 weeks ago, the ship's long-range scanners had detected something unusual at the edge of charted space. An energy signature that didn't match anything in the galactic database. She'd submitted her findings to the Galactic Science Council, following proper protocols, expecting at least some acknowledgement. The response had been curt. Earth scanning technology is insufficiently calibrated to provide meaningful data. "Likely sensor malfunction." Report dismissed, but Yuna knew her equipment. Yes, it was older than what other species used. Yes, it was patched together from salvaged parts and human ingenuity. But it worked, and the readings were real. The energy signature was still there, slowly growing stronger. She'd been tracking it for weeks now, watching it pulse with a rhythm that felt almost deliberate. "Dr. Park, you're still looking at that ghost signal." Her assistant, a young scientist named Minjun, peered over her shoulder. "The council said it was nothing." "The council didn't even look at the data properly," Yuna replied, adjusting the scanner parameters. "They saw it came from a human ship and dismissed it immediately. But look at this pattern. It's not random interference. It's structured, organized. Something out there is generating massive amounts of energy and it's moving." "Moving where?" Yuna enhanced the tracking data, her stomach tightening as the trajectory became clear. "Toward galactic core space. Toward civilization." Back on Earth, in the sprawling government complex beneath Sol's armored dome, military commanders reviewed the latest reports with growing despair. The Vrelian Empire had just announced a new protection tax on all human colonies. 10% of all resources extracted, all goods produced, all technology developed would now go to the Vrelians, in exchange for their generous defense umbrella. Admiral Minho Quan read the announcement 3 times, each reading making his blood boil hotter. Protection. As if Earth had any choice in the matter. As if humanity's outdated weapons and tiny fleet could resist if they refused. The galaxy had made it very clear over 3 decades. Earth was weak, primitive, and completely at the mercy of more advanced civilizations. "We need better weapons," Minho said to his assembled staff. "Better ships. Better everything." "With what resources, sir?" his aide asked quietly. "The materials we need for advanced drives are controlled by the Kelthari. Our weapon research is decades behind theirs. We're trying to catch up to civilizations that have had thousands of years of development." Minho had no answer. What could he say? That human determination would somehow overcome technological superiority? That Earth spirit would compensate for inferior firepower? Such thoughts were foolish. The kind of primitive thinking that made other species laugh at humanity. The alarm on his desk chimed softly. A priority message from the outer colonies. Minho opened it, expecting another complaint about Vrelian inspections or trade restrictions. Instead, he found himself reading a distress signal fragment. "This is Vrelian Outpost Gamma 7. We are under attack. Unknown hostiles. Weapons unlike anything in our database. They're cutting through our shields like..." The message ended abruptly. Minho forwarded it to Earth Command and the Galactic Council simultaneously. Within an hour, the Council's response arrived. "Minor pirate activity. Vrelian security forces are investigating. Earth vessels are advised to maintain standard patrol routes and avoid the sector." But something about the message troubled Minho. The fear in the Vrelian commander's voice had been real, and Vrelians didn't fear pirates. Their technology was too advanced, their ships too powerful. What could make them sound so terrified? On the horizon's edge, Dr. Yuna compared the coordinates of the Vrelian distress signal with her energy signature data. Her breath caught in her throat. They matched perfectly. Whatever she'd been tracking had just attacked a Vrelian military outpost. She immediately sent her findings to Captain Taman, who read the report with growing concern. "Could this be connected to other disappearances?" he asked. "What disappearances, sir?" Taman pulled up recent reports, incidents he'd been noting but hadn't connected until now. 3 Kelthari survey ships had gone silent in the past month. A mining colony had stopped responding to hails. A trading outpost had been found abandoned, its inhabitants simply gone. The Council had attributed each incident to equipment failures or administrative oversights. But now, looking at the pattern with Yuna's data overlaid, Taman saw something else. A trail of destruction, moving steadily toward the heart of galactic civilization, and nobody was paying attention because nobody believed the reports were connected. "Yuna, send this to the Council, all of it. Make them understand something is coming," she did. The response came back within hours. "Earth's concern is noted but unnecessary. The Galactic Council has security matters under control. Please focus on your assigned duties." Taman stared at the message in disbelief. Something was out there. Something powerful enough to destroy Vrelian outposts and make entire colonies disappear. And the galaxy's response was to tell humanity to mind its own business. He looked out the viewport at the stars, wondering how many of those distant lights had already gone dark, snuffed out by whatever was coming. The galaxy thought Earth was a joke, too primitive to be taken seriously. Soon, Taman feared everyone would learn a terrible lesson about underestimating threats. The question was whether that lesson would come too late to save anyone, including humanity itself.